I know you took the doll's head. Where is it? Where's the head?
Curb Your Enthusiasm is weird. Not just kind of weird, it is incredibly weird. In the history of the medium, there's nothing quite like Curb. The way each episode is created runs counter to the process of almost every other television comedy. Whereas on other programs, the scripts are firmly written, each joke is carefully crafted, there's polish, Curb goes the opposite direction, relying on controlled chaos, heavy improvisation, and scripts that are merely an outline or suggestion of what should happen in each episode. That can be an incredibly difficult process to make work consistently. Filling a show like that with top-notch performers who know how to think on their feet, well, that's a step in the right direction of making it work.
Oh, you're in the show tomorrow night?
Yeah, sure.
Great. Oh, I can't wait. Because you will fail.
What Curb Your Enthusiasm really is one of the realest shows to ever exist on television that isn't real at all. So what does that mean? Well, let's go from macro to granular. Essentially, each individual episode is written as it's being filmed. No one knows for sure what's going to happen. The unusual approach has made Curb a cultural phenomenon, beloved by fans and critics alike. It also ensures this HBO sensation has a feeling of authenticity you simply won't find anywhere else on television. So despite being fiction, well, it feels a little bit like nonfiction. So let's stay macro before we get into the specifics of the creative process by taking a quick look at the creation of the show. After making a name for himself co-creating, writing, and producing Seinfeld, Larry David was approached to come up with a new show for HBO. His idea was to play a character loosely based on himself. Like the real Larry, the fictional one is insecure, prone to getting himself into embarrassing situations, and relatively misanthropic. TV Larry hates almost everybody except a small group of people in his inner circle. Sometimes he doesn't even like them. David's approach was to do something similar to Seinfeld, in that this new show would look a little bit like the awkward little moments we live through each day. Being on a premium cable channel afforded additional opportunities though. Curb could have edgier plots and of course swearing.
You goddamn mother bitch! You car wash.
It could be the dark, bizarro world version of Seinfeld. And I think most would agree he accomplished that specific goal. So now that we have some basics, let's take a look at the freewheeling process that makes the show so unusual. It starts with the outline. After years spent honing Seinfeld scripts, David wanted to try a new approach to comedy. Rather than having every single word written down for the cast to memorize, the scripts for Curb are much more simplistic. In fact, they're merely a skeleton. According to Jeff Garlin, who plays Larry's manager, Jeff, the actors are given a roughly 7-page outline for each episode. It describes the general plot, along with some specific scenarios designed to get the story from beginning to end. For example, take the season 2 episode entitled The Doll. In it, Larry has successfully pitched a TV pilot to the head of ABC. That deal is put in jeopardy when he offends the executive's 6-year-old daughter by cutting the hair off her antique doll, even though she specifically asked him to do it. Eager to rectify the situation, he turns to manager Jeff for help. Jeff says that his daughter has a large collection of dolls, including one just like the doll Larry damaged. The two steal the head from that doll, then give it to the little girl as a replacement. Jeff's wife Susie discovers what they've done and becomes angry. That is your outline, right there. It's very reductive, but it's pretty much it. The specifics of how they get to point A to point B to point C, well, that becomes up to the actors. And so we hit the scene. According to Garland, any given scene will have only a paragraph or two of description, just enough so that the performers know the overall beats that need to be hit when they show up to set. From there, the scene is shot multiple times using 2 cameras, with the actors improvising different lines or reactions. Nobody knows what anyone else is going to say or do.
I'm so sorry again for the delay. I have diarrhea.
This leads to spontaneous, more authentic reactions than you'd get in a properly scripted show. The stars are truly in the moment. Rather than waiting for the cue to say their next line, they instead wait to see what the other person is going to say, just like you would in real-life conversation. Taking these chances and having it pay off requires a special kind of acting.
Oh, somebody get a sponge.
I don't understand. Why don't you get a sponge?
And that leads to the third factor that makes Curb Your Enthusiasm work in such a unique way. It's who you've got saying those lines. The show has actors who specialize in improv. They understand the rules, one of which is that you should always build on what another actor puts on the table. In the improv world, this is known as the yes and rule. In other words, you don't contradict another performer, you take their idea and add a layer to it instead. Look at scenes between Larry and Jeff. As a comedian, Garland specializes in improv. If you watch a stand-up, they're similar in construction to how the show is constructed. He goes on stage with topics he wants to discuss, then makes his routine up on the spot, based in part on the energy of the audience. Garland is a true supporting actor in this sense when you put him in the context of Curb. Jeff, the character, often eggs Larry on. If Larry is outraged in something, well, Jeff is outraged in that same context. Or at the very least, he validates Larry's outrage. This allows that outrage to grow so that Jeff can continue egging it on, which ideally leads to a series of comedy dominoes that leads to one final explosion.
What the hell are you using my wife for?
I thought you'd be flattered.
Flattered? I'm nauseous.
Well, nauseous? Why'd you be nauseous?
You, my wife, I just don't like the whole...
That building layer upon layer is a consistent theme throughout the show, and its construction is why. Take Richard Lewis's recurring character. David and Lewis have been friends for a long time in real life, and because the real life men have been friends for as long as they have, they can insult or needle one another on screen in ways other actors simply can't, or wouldn't necessarily feel as comfortable doing. They like to try to outdo each other in the scenes they share in this very way.
Sorry about your bird. The good news is I'm still alive. This is a tragedy, and you treated it like it was nothing to me. How dare you?
JB Smoove joined the cast partway through the show's run, and he's another brilliant improviser. Because he's such an unpredictable live-wire comedian, many of Curb's most hilarious moments find him going off on bizarre tangents. Watching how David reacts to these tangents and then finds ways to encourage his co-star to keep going is a stellar example of the show's magic. You simply can't script stuff like this.
Yeah, what are you doing?
I'm laughing. What you doing?
You laughing?
Chilling. Relaxing.
Why'd you
Laid
change
back.
from chilling? What was wrong with chilling?
Given that every take is different, you might wonder how they decide what to use. And that brings us to the final element that makes Curb Your Enthusiasm unique. It's in the edit. The show's editors have the daunting task of making sense of all of this footage. They work with Larry and the episode's director to decide what to use. One specific trick is to combine different takes, and you see this literally everywhere across every single show and movie. It's less a trick and more just how every single television show works. Because two cameras record the action, they're able to splice takes together. And in a situation where you're dealing with improv, this piecemeal approach is complicated yet borderline necessary. There's this widespread belief that on a conventional sitcom, everything would be written down, so if a joke didn't work, there'd be no way to change it. This simply isn't true. Most of the time, multiple jokes are recorded, and some improv is taking place there as well. However, they're much more limited in those takes and those options. The Curb team isn't as much, and so they have to massage down a scene to make it as funny as possible, with a nearly limitless amount of options. If something isn't working, they can try a different combination of takes until they get it right. The ability to do this is why the show is hilarious from start to finish, rather than just intermittently so. The Curb Your Enthusiasm is assembled from beginning to end non-traditionally, which requires full commitment to the premise and absolute trust. Two things that other shows get away with not having entirely. David assembled a group of talented, trusting actors to populate his television universe. These performers all agreed to participate in a risky experiment with him, one that upends the traditional rules of television by partaking in a process that presents a lot of what happens when things go wrong and accepting the potential failure. That pressure forces everyone to show up every day at their absolute best, and every single one of them throughout the show's run does just that. As artificial as the things that Larry David and his team are making fun of here, the element of facade in television, well, it kind of falls away here. And you get episodes that make you laugh and cringe equally, much more organically than its contemporaries. A show that can touch on uncomfortable emotions, uncomfortable moments. Watching Curb, it's impossible not to think of your own life and parallel that to what's happening on screen. And I actually think what's really special about Curb and all of this, eschewing structure for a moment, is simply that what Larry David did is he brought in a bunch of people and asked them to exaggerate themselves, maintain the core of who they are, how they talk, how they behave, and amp every little personality quirk up to 1 million. Which frankly is what everybody should be doing all the time when they pursue, well, anything artistic. Put yourself on the page, on the screen, behind the camera, and put a microscope on every good thing, every emotion, every feeling that you want to put out into the world. That's how Curb makes you laugh. That's how art makes you feel. That's how music makes you dance. That is what is important about presenting something to other people. So yes, Curb is a TV show with actors who are not being themselves all the time, but it's a lesson in how important it is to amplify the good things by taking away the script in your own life and in your own art whenever possible. Today's sponsor is Upstart. As a lot of you know, I have a pretty heavy investing background. And I appreciate all of you, and Upstart is a partner that I'm really interested in because I think they do something unique and something that might actually help you guys. A lot of us come out of school, myself included, and end up in credit card debt. It can be overwhelming to manage that debt. Upstart helps you take control of that, which I think is really unique. If you have multiple credit cards, you're trying to track multiple balances, due dates, website logins, Upstart makes that simple with one monthly payment in one place. With just a 5-minute online rate check, you can see your rate up front, you can get approved the same day and receive runs fast. Upstart helps put you in a better place, which is why I'm interested in them partnering here. You can find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments today when you go to upstart.com/nerdstalgic. That's upstart.com/nerdstalgic. The loan amounts will be determined based on your credit, your income, and other information in your app. So go to upstart.com/nerdstalgic if you're interested in this kind of consolidation, especially if you're one of the people I've talked to about the way you've bought your equipment to do exactly what we're doing here. Well guys, that's it for today's episode of Nerdstalgic. If you enjoyed this episode, press that like button down below, and as always,
Pretty good. It's pretty good.
on your screen right now are 2 more episodes of Nerdstalgic, and hopefully I will see you guys in the next video.